Hello viewers, my name is Andre Pranata Pranginangin, and today I want to presenting about metallurgy, chapter 3 about mechanism properties and strengthening mechanism. This is the book that we use for study. The title is Metallurgy for the Non-Metallurgists, second edition, edited by Arthur C. Riordan. Purpose. The purpose of this chapter is to introduce the concept of mechanical properties and the various underlying metallurgical mechanisms that can be used to alter the strength of materials. Strengthening mechanisms are an important part of materials engineering, and metallic materials offer a wide range of options in terms of mechanical strength and ductility. 3.1 Mechanical properties. When a force or a combination of force are applied to be a material, the material responds by deforming or straining, often in a complex manner. For example, when a bungee jumper hops off a platform, the bungee cord stretches dramatically, and at the same time its cross-sectional area decreases. For example, a weight hung from the end of a steel wire will cause the wire to stretch and its cross-sectional area to decrease. But the amount of deformation is not readily observed without performing carefully measurement of the length and diameter of the wire under load. Mechanical properties describe the relationship between the stress acting on a material and the resulting deformation the material undergoes as a result of this applied stress. The concept of stress in its most general form is a force or load divided by the area over which it acts. For a force F acting over an area A, the strain equals F per A. True stress is based on the instantaneous cross-sectional area under load and is therefore a more accurate method for characterizing the stress. Because the value of the true stress is typically more difficult to determine than the engineering stress, it is used less frequently in practice. It is obtained by dividing the load F by the original area of the cross-section of the specimen A0. Strain equals F per A0. Strain allows us to quantitatively characterize the deformation that occurs due to the application of the applied stress. It should be noted that strain is a pure number. It has no units associated with it. To calculate the strain, the original dimension or body is compared to the same dimension or shape in the deformed body. The method used to calculate the strain has the same units in both the numerator and the denominator, and so these units cancel each other out, resulting in a pure number. In the conventional engineering tension test, an engineering stress strain curve is constructed from the load elongation measurement made on a tensile test specimen. Because both the engineering stress and the strain are obtained by dividing the load and elongation by constant factor, the long elongation curve has the same shape as the engineering stress strain curve. As the tension on the test specimen increases, it is gauge length change in response to the applied stress. The resulting strain epsilon depicted in the engineering stress strain curve is the average or nominal linear strain. which is obtained by dividing the change in the gauge length, also called the elongation of the specimen, delta, by its original length L0. Epsilon equals delta per L0 equals delta L per delta L per L0 equals L minus L0 per L. Mechanical properties has 6 points. There are elasticity. Elasticity is in the elastic region of the engineering stress-strain curve in this picture. Stress is linearly proportional to strain. This region is the straight line that can be seen on the left-hand side of the stress-strain diagram. When a crystal is stressed by an internal or external load, the lattice strains in response to the applied stress through the relative movement of the atoms. Number 2, plasticity. Plasticity, the point at which plastic deformation or yielding is observed to begin depends on the sensitivity of the strain measurements. With most materials, there is a gradual transition from elastic to plastic. And the point at which plastic deformation begins is difficult to define with precision. In tests of materials under anexial loading, 3 criteria for the initiation of yielding have been used: the elastic limit, the proportional limit, and the yield strength. Number 3 is creep deformation. Creep deformation refers to time-dependent plastic deformation that occurs when a material is subjected to constant nominal stress. The rate of creep deformation depends not only on the magnitude of the applied stress but also on time and temperature. Continuing creep deformation over time ultimately leads to creep rupture, also known as stress rupture. Number 4 is fatigue. Fatigue, the tendency of a material to break under condition of applied cyclic stress, is called fatigue. Fatigue fractures are different from the ductile fracture that usually result from a regular tension and creep loading of most metals. Instead, fatigue fracture is caused by the propagation of cracks that initiate at a single point or a few points in the material, and fatigue fracture are almost always brittle fracture. Most parts and fatigue specimen contains points of stress concentration such as surface roughness or change in part of or specimen section, at which stress is concentrated and where fatigue cracking initiates. Number 5 is toughness. Toughness is the ability of a material to absorb an impact or shock load without fracturing. Specimen and notch geometry, as well as the manner of load application, are all important in toughness determinations. For dynamic or high strain rate, loading condition, and when a notch or a point of stress concentration is present, notch toughness is assessed by using an impact test such as a Karpy impact test. And the last, hardness. Hardness is the resistance of a material to plastic indentation. While the measurement of hardness can involve only a simple scratch test or bounce test, it usually involves the amount of indentation caused by the application of a hard indenter of some standard shape and material. Hardness values are roughly proportional to the strength of a metal. Therefore, hardness values can be useful during selection of a suitable material for an application. Hardness values are very useful during quality control operation. This is the picture of hearts. 3.2 Strengthening mechanisms. The underlying structure of metals and alloys, or be it macrostructure or microstructure, have an important bearings on their strength, ductility, and toughness. Strength of materials can be improved in various ways, as described in the following sections. For example, a microstructure with finer grains typically result in both higher strength and superior toughness compared to the same alloy with physically larger grains. Other strengthening mechanisms are achieved at the expense of lower ductility and toughness. Thus, there may also be trade-offs between strength and ductility depending on the material, the application, and the microstructural mechanism of strengthening. 3.2.1 Solid solution strengthening. Solid solution strengthening is a mechanism that increases the strength of a metal through the careful addition of specific alloying elements. The insertion of substitutional and or interstitial alloying elements produce a strain in the crystalline lattice of the host solvent structure because the solid atoms typically have a different size than the host atoms. The resulting distortion or strain energy creates a barrier to dislocation motion. As a result, a moving dislocation is either attached to or repelled by the solid. However, both solutions result in a strength increase. 3.2.2 Effect of grain size. Grain boundaries are effective obstacle to slip, because the slip of dislocations in the lattice of individual grains cannot easily cross the high energy barrier of grain boundaries. Thus, grain boundaries provide a source of strengthening by pinning the movement of dislocation from one grain to another. Smaller grains in a polycrystalline material also mean that a greater percentage of the material consists of grain boundaries for strengthening. The exceptions are when grain boundaries become weakened by due to environmental factors such as high temperature or impurities such as hydrogen, or the precipitation of undesirable compounds or phases. 3.2.3 Cold working. If a metal is deformed at room temperature or up to approximately 0.3 Tm, where Tm is the melting point on the absolute temperature scale, the microstructure becomes deformed due to cold working, also known as work hardening or strain hardening. During cold working, most of the energy is dissipated in the workpiece as heat. However, as much as 10% of the energy is retained as stored energy within the metal, in the form of vacancies, dislocations, and stacking faults. The amount of stored energy increases with greater amounts of deformations and lower working temperature. 3.2.4 Back to Dr. Wilm's mystery. The good doctor discovered a process now known as a solution heat treating and natural aging. He also designed an alloy, or duralumin, suitable for strengthening by this process in what is now known as the precipitation hardening. To explain, recall that Dr. Wilms subject duralumin to an elevated temperature and then rapidly cool the alloy back to room temperature. The strength of the alloy then increases over time or naturally at room temperature. The basic stage of precipitation hardening are illustrated in this picture. With hardness plot against time, the increases in hardness with time is known as precipitation hardening or edge hardening. In Zone 1, submicroscopic precipitate particles are being formed as the alloy attempts to reach equilibrium. Solute atoms diffuse through the solvent lattice. They segregate to form a few very small particles, a stage in which solute atoms are grouped or rearranged so they can begin to form a precipitate. This result is in a slight increase in hardness. In Zone 2, maximum hardness is reached. The solute atoms move about and form small particles attempting to form the precipitate phase. The precipitated remains coherent with the aluminum lattice. Strength increase significantly. In Zone 3, the precipitates grow in size with continued aging and tend to become non-coherent. The loss of coherency reduces lattice stress, resulting in decreased hardness. Ductility increases if the aging temperature is held too long. Overaging occurs, which reduces both hardness and strength. 3.2.5 Other important strengthening mechanisms. Dispersion strengthening is an active mechanism in alloys, intended for use intermediate and elevated temperatures. It is in many ways very similar to edge hardening. The difference lies in the precipitates themselves. The particles are chosen because of their thermal stability, that is, their resistance to particle coarsening or growth at high temperatures. In contrast, the edge hardenings or heat treatable aluminum alloys consist of precipitates second phase dispersions that are not particularly thermal stable. This picture shows the retentions of beneficial strengthening effect at higher temperature, offered by an ODS aluminum alloy with respect to both pure aluminum and precipitation hardened aluminum, magnesium, and silicon system. 6061. In this figure, although the precipitation hardness system exhibits a similar hardness at low temperature, when the particles fully dissolve around 225 Celsius, the primary strengthening mechanism is lost, resulting in a significant reduction in hardness. In contrast, the ODS alloy remains stronger at elevated temperatures. That's all from me to presenting about Chapter 3, Mechanical Properties and Strengthening Mechanisms. Thank you.